Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Wave Lounge, hot flashes and cool conversations. I'm Robin Duke, and today on the show we have Coach Jen, and she is an amazing lady. Hi, Jen, welcome in.
Hi, Robin. Thanks for having me.
Yes, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Jen. She is a holistic menopause strategist, co-author of Redefining Menopause, and host of Women Rocking Middle Life podcast. Jen is a former chemical engineer with a background in fitness, nutrition, yoga, mindfulness, and subconscious work. Jen brings what she learns from her own menopause and premenopause journey. Her approach goes beyond symptom chasing to addressing emotional patterns, nervous system balance, and lifestyle choices that support balance, confidence, and peace of mind. She is on a mission to empower you to take control of your well being during menopause and feel like you again.
Thanks for having me, Robin.
Well, thank you for being on the show. Jen's been on our podcast before, and we're always just so excited to have her because we have such really great, interesting conversations. Jen, today we're going to be talking about choices for emotional balance through menopause, and she is the expert on it, and I just love her natural approach. So, Jen, tell us a little bit about how you got started in this and what's important for you in your story.
I actually, in perimenopause, I was surprised. I didn't even know I was in perimenopause, but I started feeling this emotional instability, really is a good way to describe it. I started feeling like wild thoughts. I would have trouble sleeping, feeling anxious and just worry, like existential worry. And I hear other women talk about that too. And I didn't really know what was going on. In fact, I didn't know what was going on until years later. I started doing this work because I think it's important to talk about this stuff so that women know that this is normal. You're not losing your mind. It's something to do with your physiology, and that's affecting how you feel and how you're thinking for a while. And there are things you can do about it, actually. My real passion for it is to make sure that women know that this is normal and there's not something wrong with you.
Yes, I can very much relate to what you just said. As I know, going through my perimenopause and menopause, I had a lot of days when I would have anxiety or stress or just fleeting thoughts or just a lot of emotional conversation where I couldn't shut off all the different thoughts in my head and in my mind and how to create a balance. Are you finding that there's a lot of women that are talking about this?
Yeah, I do. The anxiety, mood swings, irritability, anger, like rage even. For me, it kind of culminated before I even knew that I was in menopause. I had a couple of panic attacks like back to back, and that caught me off guard because usually I was pretty even keel. Now, when I was younger, I had some emotional turmoil and I felt kind of out of control of my emotions. It's almost like that was kind of like teens, late teens, young adult. And as I got older, I found ways to manage that and not even manage it. I just got past it really. And I believe it was a lot of the tools I was using. So when I had this panic attack, I was like, wait a minute, what is going on? Like, am I reverting or something back to what happened in the past? I thought I was all good. So the first time I just thought that was really weird. I wonder what was going on. And it was kind of a stressful time, actually. So I just attributed it to that at first. And then it happened again, just like within a few days, if I recall correctly. And I was like, okay, what is happening? Something's really crazy right now. I went back to practices that I knew worked before. When I was younger, I got into mindfulness and subconscious work and yoga and meditation and all these different things. And the more I did with that, and the more that I tapped into my subconscious, the more I realized that I could actually control my emotions. I didn't have to be like this big emotional mess, and that was when I was younger. And then I thought, okay, this is what it feels like again. I'm having this emotional turmoil, so let me just try that stuff again. And I was using it the whole time, but off and on, inconsistently. You know how we are, like you get out of your habits. So at the time that this all hit me in perimenopause in my mid 40s, I wasn't being consistent. I would maybe do yoga sometimes. I probably was barely meditating or anything like that, doing any kind of subconscious work here and there. But when I got back into it, it just completely subsided for me. A few years later, I had some other stuff come up, but it was like different. It was like another phase of menopause hitting. But I just went back to it. I just went back to the old practices, and then I got deeper into emotional release, emotional integration, and now I actually do somatic practices as well because some women don't like to meditate.
Well, that's interesting. So tell us a little bit more about somatic practices.
Yeah. So as I've been talking to other women and working with them with these practices that I've used for 37 years now, not always for menopause, obviously, about the last decade or so for menopause, as I've been working with them, some women are really resistant to the idea of any kind of meditation or mindfulness, especially with the anxiety. I found a lot of the women who are experiencing the anxiety and have had it for years, they say I can't meditate, or I get actually get more anxious when I meditate and I'm getting still. So I was like, well, I know how powerful this is. So I have to find some way to let these women experience something along those lines. So as I researched, I found the concept of somatic practices, and I've developed some that I worked into my program. Yeah, that's even more powerful. Yoga could be considered a somatic practice because it's movement of your body combined with breathing often. Sometimes we're too busy trying to get into the pretzel position to be able to breathe, but you can do it a lot more simply. So yoga would be considered a somatic practice, but there's also a lot simpler ones.
Mm.
Combine it with breathing and it gets meditative. And so you
Like
can,
what would be another one that would be easy for a beginner to start with?
oh, actually, the easiest one is walking. You can actually, I mean, I'll show you one that's a little more in between those two, but you can walk and just count and breathe, and you get a rhythm going, and that can become calming and meditative by itself. So that's probably the simplest thing. Do you want me to show you like another specific practice that I developed, that a
Sure.
grounding one? Okay.
Yes.
Well, it won't really be showing you because you can't see my whole body, but I'll just show you part of it. So you can do it seated. Put your feet flat on the floor, and you want to imagine that your feet are growing roots. Okay. I know this is starting to feel like stillness, but it's not going to be complete stillness. And then put your hands in the prayer position in front of your heart. And so you want to really notice the pressure. Notice the pressure under your feet. Notice the pressure in your hands. And then just take some breaths. So this is pretty still, but if you find yourself getting anxious, you can sway. You can add that. You can also do this standing up if it's too anxious to do it seated. And then you just take a few breaths. And you can add movements, like you can start moving your hands a little bit. But don't force the movement. It's only if you're starting to feel like the stillness is too much.
Mm.
So these are totally variable. You can add variation to
Mm.
these practices depending on how much stillness you're comfortable with or how much
Mm.
stillness you're not comfortable with. So that again is a very simple one.
That's really interesting. And that's actually a really good one that you can do in the morning or even before you go to
Anywhere.
bed, too.
Yeah,
I like the ones where I can before I go to bed because so many times, we're coming off of a place where we've just finished watching an action show. And so your mind is still like, racing and running from, whatever movie you just watched or
right,
conversation that you had. And sometimes it takes a little bit. For me, I can't just go straight to bed. I have to like kind of lay there and breathe a little bit and put on a soft light, maybe some music. I got to let my body power down, so to speak.
right.
And it feels like this is a little bit of that type of movement and practice.
Yeah, you can totally do that. I actually have, as part of my whole 6-part program, is the last step is rituals, and there's morning rituals and evening rituals, and basically everything's customizable because we're not all the same. So the same thing isn't going to work for each person. So I actually have a menu of nighttime rituals. But one of the biggest things is no screens for at least 30 minutes, maybe 60 minutes if you can. I do read on my Kindle sometimes, but I make sure I use blue blockers at night. Yeah, if you can do 30 to 60 minutes with no screens, that makes a huge difference. I know
Mhm.
this isn't something we were getting into, but the screens, from my research, it tells your mind that it's like the middle of the day. Like the light that comes from the screen, it's telling you it's like noon, lunchtime or something. So that's why it's hard to go to bed if you're just scrolling on your phone or even, yeah,
Yes.
I don't know about the TV, but I would assume, yeah.
Well, if you have a TV in your room, which I don't have a TV in my room because it's just another distraction, another electronic thing in my room. And I really try to keep my room electronically free because those waves that come off of your electronics do affect your mind and can cause racing thoughts and can keep you from sleeping. It's best if you can keep your phone even in another room and because it allows your brain to calm down and say, okay, it's time to sleep.
Yeah.
And I know in menopause, we don't get a lot of sleep. And that's, a lot of that can be from our diet, not enough exercise, our hormones. I mean, there's so many things that trigger our brain and keep it from sleeping. So anything that we can do to help slow it down and to bring it back into balance is a good thing. Everyone is different. So what we can do is just offer different types of solutions and you can find the one that works for your best for yourself, right?
Exactly, exactly. When you were bringing up the electronics and the emissions from them, have you ever heard of Faraday fabric? There's actually a fabric you can buy that's supposed to block that.
Really? So I've heard of like grounding mats that you
Yeah,
can lay on that absorb the electrical waves that are coming off your body and ground you.
right.
Um,
Yeah.
and
There's so many different things we can use, right?
there are so many
Yeah.
different ways. And I actually had someone ask me if that worked, and I don't know. In the listening audience, if you have ever used it, please leave us something in the notes letting us know if it works or if it doesn't work. That would be interesting to know.
Yeah, I don't know either. That practice that I just showed you, that was a grounding practice. So
Mhm.
with your feet on the ground. Really, anytime that you get present in your body, if that's going to ground you. For example, that's what I did while I was having that panic attack in my 40s, is I just got myself, because I felt like I was spiraling out of control, and then all of a sudden I was able to think enough to say, to get myself present into my body and just notice my body in rooted into the ground, and that sort of helped slow everything back down and
Mhm.
stop the panic attack. Not that that will work for everyone, but yeah.
Well, I know that we as women do tend to have a lot more anxiety, and anxiety is also brought on by stress. And we are in the holiday season, and that does bring on a
Mhm.
lot of added stress. Are there some different things techniques that you can use around the holidays to help calm your anxiety, calm your stress, different practices, things that you would recommend?
Yeah, one that you can do anytime, anywhere, like if you're in traffic or something like that and the holiday chaos is getting to you, is the square breathing, or box breathing is when you breathe in for 4 counts, hold it for four, let it out for four, and then hold it for four. And then you just keep repeating that.
Mm,
But you can also breathe in for four, hold it for six, and then breathe out for eight.
that would be a good one.
So that one kind of actually slows you down even more. Yeah, so that one's really good. But I actually have another thought that it's not really a practice. It's more of a self-care and a habit. And sometimes it takes a lot, but learning how to say no
Mhm.
and setting really clear boundaries. I know we're like going all over the place here, but
No, it's okay.
that's what I think is really important in the holidays, especially for women. We feel like we have to take all of it on. And when you can say no without feeling guilty, there's definitely work with that. But even these kind of somatic practices and the emotional release and that it's all tied together because if you feel guilty for saying no, there's something within you, like some kind of emotional baggage that created that. So the somatic practices don't just calm your nervous system, they actually can help you release those kind of hidden emotions from your body. So those subconscious things that maybe have been with you your whole life, something from your childhood where how you grew up made it hard for you to say no or you'd feel guilty. So that would be really a good tip. I know it might be hard to just say no and not feel guilty because it's a process. Yeah, you start noticing like, okay, I want to say no. How do I feel about that? And you can start noticing what's behind it. Yeah.
Mm, that's so true. Learning how to say no and setting your boundaries and then feeling okay with that. That
Hmm.
is a conversation to have with yourself. And like you said, if you're having trouble saying no, then that's a time to reflect on what's behind that. And that only takes a second. And because a lot of times it'll be like a visual that'll flash or a memory that'll come back. And it's like, oh yeah, I said no and then I got shamed for it or I got teased for it, and so now I have a hard time because I don't want to disappoint so and so.
Right.
I think it's a journey. There's lots of times when I can say no and I can feel okay with it. And then there's other times when I have to like go, what's going on back here? Or it's every no has a different thing behind it, a different emotion behind it of why you're saying no. But ultimately, self-care is the most important thing for you during the holidays. It's being able to take that time and make it a quality time for yourself during the holidays.
Yes, definitely. Definitely slow down and take time for yourself.
Yes, yes. Wow, this is really an interesting conversation because this also is kind of like a one step to looking at your lifestyle. These are practices that you're not going to do overnight, but every time you make a step forward, you're putting another block in your lifestyle path.
Yes.
I kind of like
Yeah,
that.
I have specific somatic practices that I teach in my program, but you can also use your intuition to starting to pay attention to what your body wants to do and notice like when are you holding that back? When do you want to get up and move? Or maybe here's some music and you want to dance, but it's like in a weird place where you wouldn't normally dance. So you're like, oh, I shouldn't do that. Or you're excited and you want to express it more physically, but you hold back because you've been conditioned to keep your body more small and still. And that's probably more true for boys, but all of us were told, oh, stay in your seat, stay in line, do this, do that. So your body's been controlled your whole life growing up. So you're just so used to keeping it contained. But you can start to pay attention. If you feel like you want to stretch, then stretch. Get up and stretch. So I was a chemical engineer and I worked for Intel for a couple of years after college. A lot of the stuff there was computers. So they were trying to avoid repetitive motion injuries. So a couple times a day, they actually had it standard practice. Everyone would take a stretch break and you'd go and be in a group and everybody would stretch together, like ergonomic stretches.
I can relate to
That
that. I
was,
was in an engineering environment for 30 years, and that
oh,
was yes, and that was one of the things that they were
yeah,
religiously said every 2 hours, get up, walk, get some water, go have a conversation, stretch your body, get outside, take some fresh air. And I feel
right.
like those things still apply today, even if we're not in an office environment or a work environment. We feel better when we are moving. And that also helps with our brain anxiety and our emotional, because there's something about changing your environment. So if you're having a panic attack, movement is a very good thing. Getting out, taking a walk, breathing, like Jen said. Those are some great breathing exercises, by the way. And just really tuning into what's going on inside of you, because it could be just a change of pace, stretching your eyes, go getting a cup of tea, maybe calling a friend and having a different conversation, finding out what's going on with them, getting outside of yourself so you're not so focused in on whatever the little tiny micro thing that is consuming you at the moment, and that when we step back and we take a look at that, we go, okay, switch to something else, switch a channel, put some music on, change gears.
Yeah, music is great, especially if you move to it, because then you're getting that movement. It shifts your mood completely.
Yeah, and there's a lot of different rhythms and vibrations, different types of nighttime music. It can be just very rhythmic, like rain or a babbling brook or ocean waves, or even a certain frequency that is very calming to your brain and to your emotions and even to your subconscious. A couple times during the course of the nighttime, I wake up, and if I get completely awake, then I'm awake. But if I can hear something soothing in the background, it'll put me back into that deep sleep that we need so much to wake up feeling refreshed again. So,
Right. Yeah, thunderstorms actually were doing it for me for a while. The but the sounds for the you find it on the video or the white noise.
well,
Thunderstorms are great.
I really like this conversation because I feel like this somatic practice is a nice bridge between the breathing and yoga or meditation because a lot of women maybe don't feel comfortable or know how to meditate. And meditation is not such a scary word, it's just another way of saying how we're releasing our body's energies, how we're bringing movement into our situation at the moment that we're doing it. And meditation is a practice. That's why they call it a practice. And meditation doesn't have to be long. You can do a meditation for like 30 seconds, 60
Yeah, I
seconds.
do sometimes.
And it's sitting quietly and refocusing so that you're bringing your mind into one point, which is usually listening to your breathing, right?
Yeah. I do all different kinds actually. I mine's more visualizing. Like if I'm having discomfort somewhere in my body, like I like to focus on that part, maybe send it love or just focus on it functioning really well. Like I had stuffy sinuses, and I'm just focusing on clear the sinuses. And so I do a lot of that kind of meditation. When I'm walking, I don't listen to music or anything like that, but I sort of just naturally get into this meditative rhythm when I'm walking. Yeah. I don't think people are scared of it, and I don't think they realize how it really is just a way to calm your nervous system. I mean, you can use it for all kinds of different things. You can use it to emphasize that healing effect. So, this is one thing that I think when we think about emotions, we usually think about that being kind of something in our mind, but it's totally connected to our body. So if you get angry, your blood pressure might go up. So if you can get into that meditative state, you can bring that back down, in turn, kind of balancing out that emotion. Like you can calm the anger and the physiological response. It's documented scientifically that mindfulness practices lower cortisol, which is the stress hormone. So that has been studied so much. There's clear documentation of that. So why not for everything else, right? Some of it hasn't been studied, so we don't have that documentation, but it stands to reason that you would have that calming effect for your body and your emotions when you get into that mindful meditative state. So if you can't do it through stillness, there are options, and you can start to bridge that gap. When you start doing these somatic practices, that can get you into the meditative state to start calming your emotions and your nervous system. And then you can eventually let yourself get into even more meditative state that does involve stillness because now you're able to calm your nervous system enough to be able to do that. And it doesn't have to happen overnight. You just do it on your own path, on your own time.
Those are such good tips and steps and really good information. And everything that Jen is saying too in our conversation is that we're just giving you some really good options that can help you through stressful times And then also too, we as women, we like to have something that we're working on every day. And so this is something that you can start incorporating into your life in small ways, just changing one or two things and maybe practicing a 30-second to a 1 minute meditation in the morning, just sitting quietly, maybe having your cup of tea or your walk in the outside, breathing some fresh air and just getting some movement in and some stretching. So when we start incorporating these things into our life, we start bringing back balance and we start becoming happier. We start seeing things clearer. We don't have to be reactive. We can bring the best parts of our life out. So I really appreciate this conversation, Jen.
Me too.
Uh,
I love talking with you about this kind of stuff because our approaches are very similar. I know we're kind of into the same things. So yeah, I love talking to you about this kind of
oh,
stuff, Robin.
thank you. Thank you. Yes, this is one of my passions and I love to talk about this. But I hear you have a couple offers for the holidays. Can you tell us about them?
Yes, I do. So the first gift that I want to offer the viewers is actually a way for you to start listening to what your body is asking for. It is a guided visualization. You can do it using stillness or you can do it standing up and doing stuff. So either way, it's called Primal Wisdom. It is an audio visualization to decode your body's menopause signals. So you can start really tapping into that intuition of what your body wants and listening to that. And then the other gift is actually a guide that explains the whole 6 steps that I use in my Primal Pause Authority program. So you can use that to help you, what are the main things to focus on to start getting through menopause more naturally. And it's things like looking at endocrine disruptors in your environment. There's a whole part about the practices that we're talking about. And then maybe a couple of things that you haven't really thought about with menopause, which is kind of looking forward. We're all just kind of trying to survive, but this guide has some little tips on how to look forward to and actually thrive.
That is wonderful. I think that we could all benefit from that. So these two offers are going to be in the show notes below, and I would encourage everybody to go and check them out. And Jen, how can a lady work with you?
You can go to my website at wildsavvy.com, or all of my contact info is on a dot card at jenkunkel.com/socials. You can get at any platform you want to find me on. You can go there and find me on whichever platform you like to use. And I also have some free gifts on that page too.
Oh, well, we like free gifts. So that's
So
awesome.
that'll put you in touch with me any way you want to.
Okay, great. Any final words? Any thoughts that you'd like to leave our
Yeah,
listeners with?
yeah. I know going through menopause naturally or not naturally, it's a really personal choice. But if you're one of the women who wants to go through it naturally, don't think your only other option is just to suffer through it. You do not have to do that. That's what I always like to make sure people understand. I feel like most women think there's two options. You can take the meds or you can suffer. And that's not necessarily the case. There's so many options out there these days. Even if it's not my direction, if that's not the right fit for you, there's something out there. There's some way that you can do menopause the way you want to do it, and you don't have to just power through it.
That's so true. Once again, just letting everybody know that going through the menopause journey, you're not alone. There are so many wonderful support people. If you go to the menopause support group on Facebook, you'll see all our wonderful care providers there, and they're all there to support you, encourage you, help you. We have everything from A to Z. We have eye doctors, we have nutritionists, we have Jen, who is amazing, mind, body connection, help find emotional balance. I'm there. I do a lot of mindfulness. There's just so many wonderful care providers. So go check that out. Check out our podcast. If you know somebody that needs to hear this information, pass it on to them because I just want everyone to know that you're not alone in this journey, that we're here to support you. And if you like this, hit the subscribe button and come back and see us again. Thank you, Jen, for being on our show today.
Thanks, Robin.
Thank you, everyone. This is the Minawave Lounge, hot flashes and cool conversations.